Island, California. Captain Monica Rochester of the Coast Guard says rescue calls came in the middle of the night.
Watchstanders overheard a mayday call via Channel 16 of an engulfed 75-foot commercial diving vessel with 39 people aboard.
5 crew members were rescued by a passing ship, but 34 people remain missing. Patience is running thin for some of the residents of Florida's Space Coast. Fort Pierce Mayor Linda Hudson.
I think what has been difficult is getting kind of tedious. It's been a long time, and now it's hovering still, so it's going to be a long time, and I think people get impatient.
Now a Category 4 hurricane. Dorian is still a very potent storm with winds of 155 miles per hour. President Trump has approved emergency declarations for Georgia and South Carolina. Wall Street closed for Labor Day. I'm Mike Moss.
Underage vaping is a serious problem.
Bloomberg Best.
And we continue the conversation now between Ariel Investments Chairman and co-CEO John Rogers and Carlyle Group co-chairman David Rubenstein. The conversation begins with Rogers describing here his family life and how his parents first met in law school.
Well, he met my mom there the first day.
Now, she was the first female African-American at the University of Chicago Law School?
She was. She graduated in 1946, and my dad in 1948.
Okay, so he built a law practice and she built a law practice?
They both had their own independent law practices because back then you couldn't work in a big, large downtown law practice. My mom worked on divorces, and my dad did mostly real estate and bankruptcies.
You were the only child?
I was.
Like myself, an only child. So the advantage of being an only child is your parents put a lot of time and attention into you. Was that a good thing for you?
It was. They focused everything on me. They got divorced when I was 3 years old. So I had 2 different lifestyles. You know, my dad lived in a studio apartment not far from downtown, and my mom lived in more of a large house in Hyde Park. And they were different political persuasions. My mom was Republican. My dad was a Democrat. So I learned to sort of navigate 2 different worlds each and every week. And
you went to the University of Chicago's famous lab school, which is a school that is well known for, I guess it's K to 12?
It's a K to 12 school. I got there in 9th grade.
Okay.
Which was a terrific place.
And in addition to your academic pursuits, you were a basketball player?
I was.
You went to Princeton and you played basketball at Princeton?
I was very fortunate to play basketball at Princeton for the Hall of Fame coach, Pete Carrill. He was a legend and someone who really transformed my life.
So you're the captain your senior year?
I did get to be a captain against all odds.
Did you think you were going to be an NBA player?
You know, Coach Carrill made it very clear that I had no hope to be an NBA player. He told me when I was a sophomore and I made the team, I was the last person on the team, the 15th person on the team. He said, Johnny, you're legally blind, and I can't teach vision. You can't dribble, but you work so hard, we'll keep you around for a few more days.
So you graduated in 1980. What did you want to do?
I had 2 role models that were stockbrokers. One across the street from campus on Nassau Street, a guy named Mike Perkins at Laidlaw Adams and Peck. He helped me, showed me at Firestone Library where to go and research companies, how to find newsletters on the stock market. And then I had a broker at home in Chicago named Stacey Adams, who was the first African-American stockbroker on LaSalle Street. And I would go and sit with him and watch the ticker tape go by. So I thought if you loved the stock market like I did, you would become a stockbroker. And I was fortunate to be hired by William Blair and Company in Chicago. The managing partner at the time, Ned Janata, was a Princeton grad who played football at Princeton. And very close to Don Rumsfeld. And Ned helped recruit me there and gave me a great opportunity to start my career at a great firm.
Okay, so you stayed there 10 years or so before you were ready to do something else?
No, I stayed about 2.5 years.
That's enough time to learn the business?
I thought so. I had confidence in my strategy of investing in small and mid-sized undervalued securities. And as I said earlier, there were not many people doing that. So we felt we were kind of pioneers in the small value place. There were a few firms like Chuck Royce's firm, Ralph Wanger at Acorn Funds, a couple of others, but not many people like to focus in that area of the market.
So you started your own company at what age?
I was 24.
And where did you get the money to capitalize it?
Well, I went to, of course, friends and family. You know, I tell people my mom gave me everything she had that was liquid. My dad gave me what he thought he could afford to lose. And after that, I went to some of my former clients, my high school buddies from the lab school. Anyone that could give me $10,000 to help me start the company.
So how much capital did it take to start it?
Roughly a little over $200,000.
Okay, and that was what year?
That was in 1983.
And where did you get the name Ariel from?
You know, I love the way the name sounded. It was a character on a favorite TV show of mine. And I always said if I have a daughter, I'm going to name my daughter Ariel.
Okay.
But I had the company first.
How much are you managing now?
About $13.5 billion.
And you managed more at one point before the Great Recession, so it came down as was the case with many companies. In fact, how much money did you actually go down to? How low did you go?
We got under $3 billion.
So do you think you maybe should fold up shop when you're under $3 billion after you having 20 or so billion?
No, not at all. You know, we had learned, I think one of the lessons I learned from my father, and Melody Hobson, our president, agreed completely, was we should always keep money saved for a rainy day. And sure enough, we had a hurricane with the financial crisis. But we'd saved enough capital in our company so that we can continue to pay our salaries and keep our key people in place during that tough period. And so that was really, really an important part of our approach. And then we bought our best stocks at really bargain prices during that period. And I think people like that we stuck to our guns and believed in what we were doing.
Now, some people say that it's impossible to beat the markets, and so therefore one should just buy index funds. In your case, you don't have index funds necessarily. You pick stocks. Why should somebody give money to a stock picker rather than just somebody who's just going to reflect whatever the S&P 500 is, whatever the index might be?
I think that the reason to do that is there are talented money managers out there who can add value. And it's been proven over time that there are people who have that gift and that creativity and that vision to buy securities and outperform the markets. Now, it's hard to find them. They're few and far between. But I think it's worth the effort. And I think it's often I say it's like sports. You know, you root for your local teams, even though you know that half the teams are going to lose and half the teams are going to win. Everyone can't be the world champion every year. But you still like to be engaged and involved in the competitive pursuit of trying to find a championship or support a champion. I think it's the same with money managers.
To keep up with what's going on in the world, do you use computers?
I actually don't use a computer.
Do you ever go on the internet?
I do have the internet on my phone, but I'm one of these folks that I've never actually had a computer. I've never turned a computer on.
Do you use emails?
I don't email.
So how do people get messages to you? Do they send a pigeon with a message, or how do they get a message to you?
They can just call me.
So you're on a number of corporate boards, and you are legendarily very loyal to your corporate boards. One of the boards you're on is McDonald's, and it is said, I don't know if it's possibly true, that you eat McDonald's every day somewhere in the world. Wherever you are, you eat one meal a day at some McDonald's. Is that true?
It's just about every day. I mean, there's exceptional times when you're traveling where I can't actually get that done. But I love being at McDonald's. It's sort of my home away from home.
And did you do that before you were on the McDonald's board?
I've been doing that since I got home from college. I just love it there.
And you think it's very healthy for you?
It seems like it's worked out okay so far for me.
So far? So when you were interviewing to be on the board, I presume they interviewed to be on the board, did you mention this, and did they think this was unusual?
I still remember having a breakfast with Andy McKenna, who became the non-executive chairman of McDonald's, and Jim Cantalupo, the CEO, and it went marvelously well because they could tell how much I love the brand.
So you used to play a lot of 3-on-3 basketball?
Yes.
So in Chicago, did you ever play basketball with Barack Obama?
Yes, several times.
And is he that good a player?
He's a very good player. He knows what he's doing. He's a little bit of an in-between size. He's sort of 6'2.5" or so.
But he can't dunk the ball, right?
I don't know about that.
Oh, you think he could dunk the ball?
I think he probably could.
Okay.
But he's a little left-handed, but he's a very good player and makes clutch shots all the time under pressure.
There was another player in Chicago, maybe better than even Barack Obama, named Michael Jordan. Did you ever play against Michael Jordan?
I did get to play against Michael around Chicago a lot. He would be at different clubs, and you get to be on the court with him.
I think he was overrated?
No. He is, I think, the greatest player of all time.
So one time I understand you played against him, and you beat him. The only person who ever beat him in a one-on-one game?
Yes, it was a very fortunate circumstance. I used to go to his senior flight school, which is a fantasy camp for people 35 years and older. And so every summer at the camp, he would challenge any camper to a short game of one-on-one, first to 3 wins. And since no one had beat him in the first 7 years of the camp, I think he was kind of a little overconfident. He would let people make a basket or two before he sort of clamped down and shut people down. Also, I had the advantage when I played him. I think he'd played about 15 campers before he got to me, so he was kind of tired. And so I was snuck up on him, and Coach Girl always said that even though I wasn't a good passer, I was a good one-on-one player. And so I had a couple tricky shots. And the last tricky shot, right as it was about to go in, you could hear Michael say on the video, "Oh no." And that was really fun.
Now, when one of the people you were playing basketball against, Barack Obama, told you he was going to run for president of the United States, what did you say?
I told him I thought it was a terrific idea. I can remember he came over to the office to tell me his plans, and I know sometimes that people wait a little bit more to get a little more seasoned, but I felt that he was really ready. I was totally confident in his ability to be the commander-in-chief, and so I encouraged him strongly to run.
Hey, and did you get involved in the campaign?
I did. I got to be co-chairman of the Illinois Finance Committee with a friend of yours, Jim Crown. We worked for Penny Pritzker, and that was a magical thing to be able to be involved on the ground floor. And then once he was elected president, I got to be co-chairman of the inauguration, and that was special. And what was really special, when he first got elected, we were the temporary transition headquarters at Ariel. So for 3 days, he was there helping to form the government, and something you'll never forget.
Now, you helped him in his campaign. He's using your offices for the transition. Did he offer you a job? And if so, why did you not take it?
Well, we never really had that conversation. I love investing, and I love our business, and I have a great team, as I mentioned earlier, at Ariel. So there was never a thought that I would go to Washington.
That's John Rogers, the chairman and co-CEO of Ariel Investments, speaking with Carlyle Group co-chairman David Rubenstein.
And that's all for this edition of Bloomberg Best.
You can see all of our best work at NI Best Go on the Bloomberg Terminal.
Our show's produced by Mark Siniscalchi. I'm Ed Baxter.
And I'm June Grosso. This is Bloomberg.
Dear Calvary,
at Tesco, we can pop our pasta in your Astra, our Red Leicester in your Fiesta, or our mayo in your Mondeo. All you need to do is try Click and Collect. Just go to Tesco.com, order your shopping, then click and collect. With the minimum basket spend now only £25. And if you fancy something a little more exotic, we can even put our pad thai in your Qashqai. Try Click and Collect at Tesco.com. Every little helps. Selected larger stores. Booking charge may apply. See online for full terms and conditions.
Oh, I found one of our new Vauxhall Griffin editions.
Yes. What comes as standard?
Standard? Well, alloy wheels, sat-nav, aircon, DAB radio, Bluetooth, smartphone projection and USB connection.
Wow. Is that everything?
Sorry, forgot the colour touchscreen.
Buy a new Griffin Edition, Adam, Astra, Corsa or Mocha X Plus and get a whole host of features as standard. The Griffin Edition range. All Griffin, no bull. Visit your nearest retailer now. Vauxhall, British brand since 1903. Participating retailers only. Limited units while stocks last.
This one shouldn't take long. Of course, if it had a cover, I might not be bothered. Can't see what's under there. And then they'd have chained the back wheel. It would have taken me much longer, especially if the chain's off the ground. Makes it harder to cut. This one doesn't even have a lock on the front. So, in the time I've been talking to you, I've nicked it.
Over 9,000 scooters and motorbikes were stolen in London last year. Lock your bike, chain the rear wheel, and cover it to make it harder to steal. Lock, chain, cover. The Met Police.
For people who want to feel happier, stronger, fitter, get further, faster, better. For people who want to, but don't always manage to. It doesn't matter how you want to do it, who you want to do it with. It matters that you want to. Virgin Active. We'll find a way for you. Join in September and get 15% off each month on 12-month memberships. Visit virginactive.co.uk. Participating gyms. Terms and conditions apply.
Did someone say winter sun? It's that time again. And this year at Jet2 Holidays, we're saying Cyprus. On this incredible island, you get it all. A choice of 4- and 5-star hotels, amazing ancient ruins for culture-packed days out, hiking and cycling trails for active adventures, and plenty of blue flag beaches for soaking up that winter sun. Book Cyprus now with just a £60 deposit. Jet2 Holidays. Package holidays you can trust. APRA and ATOL protected, subject to availability and conditions.
24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and at TikTok on Twitter. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
Dorian's slow advance. I'm Mike Moss. The Coast Guard is trying to do whatever it can after an early morning boat fire off the coast of Southern California. Captain Monica Rochester.
5 people were evacuated aboard a Good Samaritan pleasure craft known as the Great Escape. Currently, 34 people aboard the vessel are unaccounted for.
Those missing are believed to have been sleeping at the time of the fire. 5 crew members were rescued by a passing boat. Hurricane Dorian still has winds of 155 miles per hour, technically a downgrade from a Category 5 to a Cat 4. But the storm has been devastating to the Bahamas. Bahamian Foreign Affairs Minister Darren Henfield says communication remains a problem.
Power lines are down, lamp poles are down, trees are across the street. It is very dangerous to be outdoors if you don't have to be outdoors.
Dorian hasn't yet made the move to the north that would result in Florida avoiding a direct hit. So evacuations continue in Florida, Georgia, and South Carolina. Correspondent Rosa Flores is in Daytona Beach.
The Barrier Island, where I'm live right now, is under a mandatory evacuation. Businesses are definitely heeding the warning. The evacuation order is along this 47-plus mile island. It also includes low-lying areas, anyone living in a mobile home park or an RV park.
West Palm Beach Mayor Keith James is worried about people underestimating the risk.
There will probably be a lot of trees knocked down, maybe even some power lines going down. There are going to be people without power. So this is not going to be a comfortable next few days. I really want people to remain vigilant.
Palm Beach International Airport is closed as Dorian approaches. Florida Hollywood International Airport is scheduled to close soon. Wall Street is closed for the Labor Day holiday today. I'm Mike Moss.
Hey, I'm Andy. If you don't know me, it's probably because I'm not famous. But I did start a men's grooming company called Harry's. The idea for Harry's came out of a frustrating experience I had buying razor blades. Most brands were overpriced, overdesigned, and out of touch. At Harry's, our approach is simple. Here's our secret. We make sharp, durable blades and sell them at honest prices for as low as $2 each. We care about quality so much that we do some crazy things, like buy a world-class German blade factory. Obsessing over every detail means we're confident in offering a 100% quality guarantee. Millions of guys have already made the switch to Harry's, so thank you if you're one of them. And if you're not, we hope you give us a try with this special offer. Get a Harry's starter set with a 5-blade razor, weighted handle, shave gel, and a travel cover. All for just $3 plus free shipping. Just go to harrys.com and enter 6655 at checkout. That's harrys.com, code 6655. Enjoy.
Well, instead of taking it easy this Labor Day, a job consultant is suggesting doing a little work.
Homework on planning your work future is what WeCruiter founder Jack Kelly recommends. In Forbes magazine, Kelly says this weekend is a good time to look at your career and ask if you're happy, stuck, or want to pivot to another line of work. Maybe write down a plan of action to power forward your career. If you're unhappy, update your resume this Labor Day. Kelly suggests reading some self-help industry-related books to improve yourself. If you have a short attention span, well, then stick to blogs, podcasts, and YouTube videos that could help improve your job prospects. Kelly says doing some labor on Labor Day could pay off in the future. I'm Evan Haining.
Elon Musk is returning from China with a tax break for his electric car company. Chinese authorities announced that Tesla's won an exemption from a 10% purchase tax to reduce the price on its Model 3, Model S, and Model X vehicles. I'm Mike.
And I'm Mark Mills in the Bloomberg Radio Newsroom. China shrugged off President Trump's latest escalation of the tariff war. The Trump administration slapped tariffs on roughly $110 billion in Chinese imports on Sunday. State media in China is signaling that the government is ready to weather the economic turbulence with no progress to resolve the standoff in sight. Americans buying certain Apple products will feel the effects of the tariffs, as we hear from Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini.
The new tariffs include 15% levies on Apple Watches, AirPods, HomePods, iMacs, some Beats headphones, and possibly on some repair parts for iPhones and the NAND flash storage component. The iPhone won't be hit with the 15% tariff until December 15th, and some are hoping for a trade deal before then. But Max Baucus, former ambassador to China and former U.S. senator, says don't count on it.
China has begun to hunker down. China has begun to kind of wait this out. China thinks that they can weather the storm more easily than President Trump or Americans think they might.
It's not clear if Apple will absorb the tariff costs or pass them on to consumers.
Bloomberg's Denise Pellegrini. The UK moved a step closer to a general election as the political crisis engulfing the country over its divorce from the European Union deepened. Allies of Prime Minister Boris Johnson are considering a snap poll as he battles his opponents in Parliament who are trying to stop him from taking the UK out of the EU without a deal on October 31st. Johnson's critics are drafting a new law to force him to delay Brexit by 3 months to the end of January 2020. U.S. financial markets are closed for Labor Day. Stock index futures are trading, and they are lower. Stocks in Europe rose, while Japan's Nikkei and the Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong both closed down about 0.4%. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and at TikTok, on Twitter, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Mark Mills. This is Bloomberg.
This is Bloomberg Best.
Bloomberg Best is about the insight and the context that we get from our guests.
It's a great way to catch up on some of the stories you might have missed on the Bloomberg.
Stories you're not going to find in any other news organization.
Bloomberg Best. Bloomberg's best stories, powered by 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries around the world.
From the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio, I'm Ed Baxter. On this Labor Day edition of Bloomberg Best, we bring you highlights from the Fed's Jackson Hole Symposium held last month in Wyoming. We'll hear from Esther George, the president of the Kansas City Fed.
As I look at where the economy is, it's not yet time. I'm not ready to begin to provide more accommodation to the economy without seeing an outlook that suggests the economy is getting weaker here.
Plus other Fed policymakers, including James Bullard, Patrick Harker, and Loretta Mester.
All this and more coming up in the next hour of Bloomberg Best.
Last month, Fed officials gathered in Jackson Hole, Wyoming for their annual economic symposium. Bloomberg's Michael McKee was there and spoke to some of the policymakers. First up, Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis President James Bullard discussed his views on the Fed's interest rate path, the global manufacturing slowdown, and the central bank's inflation target.
Jay Powell characterized the rate cut on July 31st as a mid-course correction, but the markets are basically pricing it as the start of a rate cut cycle. How do you see it? How much accommodation does the economy need?
I like to think about the mid-90s examples, the 95 example and the 98 example. But if you look at that, the Fed adjusted, was worried about, let's say, the Asian currency crisis, very similar to today, lowered the policy rate by about 75 basis points. The U.S. economy actually powered through that whole episode, and then the committee took those insurance cuts away later. I think that's a great baseline idea about what we're looking at now with a global trade war, global manufacturing and contraction, and possible spillovers to the U.S. You want to insure the economy against that and stay out of trouble.
So you think maybe 75 basis points is where you would see us stopping at this point?
I'm saying that's what they did in the 90s. I don't know where we'll end up, but I do think that you've got this yield curve that's massively inverted here, and you got the funds rate as the very highest point on the whole yield curve. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So we have to react to the fact that there's been a downdraft in global yields.
What is it that you're insuring against? There doesn't seem to be a demand problem in the U.S. There doesn't seem to be a cost of credit problem in the U.S.
This is a global slowdown, and there's a trade war going on. I don't think there's resolution likely anytime soon. And this trade war is triggering other actions around the world, other countries thinking about reevaluating their own trade relationships. So this could easily get out of control and easily feed back to the U.S. That's not my base case, but it is something that could happen. I think we should protect against.
But how does monetary policy do that?
Well, lower rates will stimulate our economy somewhat compared to what they would be otherwise, and that would help us power through the waters, the churning waters here of the trade war.
A lot of people say lower rates won't help because the problem that we're having is companies cutting back because of trade war uncertainty, not because they think that the economy is going to
but it's a big economy. There are lots of other aspects to the economy. Interest-sensitive sectors that are going to it's going to matter for them.
How much additional growth do you think you can provide to the economy?
Well, that's a great question, and there's a long literature. Much of it's been presented here at Jackson Hole over the years about what the real effects of monetary policy are and how much the economy reacts. But if you think about the 90s Asian currency crisis example, we actually argued in St. Louis during that period that because rates were lower because of the flight to safety, that helped the economy get through that episode with kind of unscathed. And so, maybe we can get an outcome like that this time around.
Well, how much of it is the fact, the idea that somebody will see lower interest rates and go buy a car, and how much of it is just reassuring people that somebody's watching out for the economy?
Well, we do want to continue the expansion, and we're certainly willing to take all actions that we need to continue the expansion as best we can.
How much do you worry about the way Wall Street sees it? The idea that they think there's a recession imminent and they're looking at 4 additional rate cuts. Do you think they're reading the economy, the outlook wrong?
Well, if you look at the yield curve, it's been a good predictor of slowdowns and recessions. And so if you have a recession prediction model, it's going to use the yield curve to try to predict that. So our job is to get the yield curve to be uninverted so that those recession probability models don't work anymore. That would be a great thing to do. I'm not interested in testing somebody's theory about this time is different about the yield curve.
What are CEOs in your district telling you about what's happening, what they see happening?
Depends who you talk to. I would say in manufacturing, they're very much scrambling to reorient supply chains, think about new strategies that will work even in a more uncertain world. If you look at agriculture, that's very much a down industry, I would say, for now. They're very much affected by the trade war. So, but on the other hand, consumer goods or something more closely tied to U.S. consumer, they're doing pretty well. Walmart reported out of our district, very strong sales. So I think there are good things going on the consumer side, the household side, which makes perfect sense. You've got, a great labor market, unemployment near 50-year lows, a lot of good things going on in that dimension.
That was James Bullard, the president of the St. Louis Fed. You're listening to a Labor Day edition of Bloomberg Best, featuring highlights from the Fed's Jackson Hole